Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from NASA's Kennedy Space Center, what is poised to be the final orbital launch of 2024 around the world. I'm Will Robinson-Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. I'll be conducting our commentary for the duration of this coverage. We're broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at KSC. Our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical operations of the broadcast tonight. Our photographers, Adam Bernstein and Michael Kane, are out and about getting ready to do some still photography, and Adam getting ready to track the rocket as well. If you're not already following the fellas on their social channels, you can find them over on X, formerly Twitter. Adam is at ABurnNYC, Michael Kane at MD Kane Jr. You follow Spaceflight Now simply at Spaceflight Now there on X, or if you're not on that platform, you can find us on Facebook, Threads, and Blue Sky. Gang's all here tonight. We also have tracking assistance from our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images. And we'll also be joined in tracking assistance by our friend Pete Carsons with Max Cube Productions a little bit later on during the broadcast. It's a clear night here on Florida's Space Coast at the time being. A good shot of the rocket right now. Currently T-minus 57 minutes, 14 seconds and counting on deck in these final days of 2024. The Starlink 12-6 mission. On board are 21 Starlink V2 mini satellites, including 13 that feature direct-to-cell capabilities. This is set to be the 90th and final Starlink mission of calendar year 2024. This will also be the 153rd launch of the V2 mini variety of Starlink satellites to date as well. As we're getting things rolling, I want to thank the more than 1,600 of you who are joining with us live. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button to allow us more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage stream. I want to thank our moderators in the live chat who are with us at the start of the broadcast. Aussie Space Girl, Callistia Lee, good evening to you both. Appreciate you being with us. If you happen to see any of the other moderators find their way into the chat, sure to give them a big hello. Actually, I do see Astro Joe also on deck with us tonight. Good to have you with us, Astro Joe. We are, of course, powered by a wonderful channel member community here on YouTube that make these live streams possible. So thanks to folks like the Rocket Girl, Butterfly, Cumulus Granatus, Lloyd Green, Distributors 69, CL Cutie, Sulfur for Lunch, KH, Samantha Burkett, and many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, that is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. In the spirit of our member community, I want to thank moderator Callistia Lee for gifting 10 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that, Callistia. And to our 10 newest channel members, welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Callistia in the live chat. We hope you decide to stick around with channel membership well into the new year and beyond. Last little bit of housekeeping. If you have a comment or question about this mission or other happenings in the realm of spaceflight, you can go ahead and use the YouTube Super Chat feature. And not only will he be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we roll on through the count, but you'll be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that is always greatly appreciated. Time currently T-minus 54 minutes, 24 seconds and counting. We're seeing some venting here from the Strongback. Typical sign around this time from pad 39A. Part of a comparatively newer process of getting this pad ready to support a Falcon 9 launch. Want to thank Kenny Luba for a $5 super chat. Appreciate you, Kenny, who says, let's go. Happy New Year all. As we certainly here at Spaceflight now, hope everyone has a happy and safe New Year's Eve ahead of you. Some of you, depending on your time zone, may already be in the midst of New Year's Eve at this moment. So, again, enjoy the day, enjoy the evening. Do so safely, of course. Speaking of safety, we hope to see a safe launch of the Starlink 12-6 mission. So let's go ahead and talk about the countdown timeline for this, the milestones that we're looking for nominally ahead of liftoff. Generally speaking, T-minus 30 minutes is when the SpaceX launch director will make the call on the start of prop load. SpaceX takes their readiness poll electronically, so if they are in a good posture to do so, they can take it a little bit earlier, but T-minus 30 minutes is generally when that happens. When the go-ahead for fueling is given, T-minus 35 minutes is when prop load gets underway. Starts with RP-1, or a rocket-grade kerosene, being loaded on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen begins flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. T-minus 30 minutes, they start loading a cryogenic helium onto the pressure vessels on the Falcon 9's first stage. Helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. The same will happen on the second stage a few minutes thereafter. T-minus 23 minutes, loading of second stage RP-1 wraps up. T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds is when the Strongback chill-down process begins. It's when they're conditioning the feed lines at the pad in preparation for a second stage liquid oxygen load. Over at pad 40, we see this visually manifest as the so-called big vent at about T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. Here at pad 39A, though, it happens just a few seconds earlier. Again, that sets up second stage LOX load, which begins at the T-minus 16 minute mark. Moving right along, T-minus 7 minutes, the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines gets underway. That's when a small amount of liquid oxygen is flowed through the plumbing and turbo pumps of the 9 Merlin engines. Helps protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. At T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the Strongback retract sequence get underway. It starts with the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings opening up, and the transporter erector, or the Strongback, reclines a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket and stays in that position until liftoff, at which point it'll pull back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9. 3 minutes before launch, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true on the second stage, about a minute thereafter, at which point the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, control of the countdown is handed over the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. Those occur when we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup. T-minus 45 seconds is when the SpaceX launch director will give their call, their go for launch. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite, command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Tonight, once again, they are targeting a liftoff at 12:39 a.m. Eastern. That's 05:39 UTC for our friends around the world. T-minus 49 minutes and 43 seconds. Time now T-minus 46 minutes, 12 seconds and counting. SpaceX will close out the year with a good launch tonight with 134 orbital missions under its belt. Taking a look at the bar chart as it currently stands before the Falcon 9 rocket just to the right of this chart lifts off. Another record year for SpaceX. They're, of course, looking to improve upon that in the coming year. Didn't quite hit their initial goal of 12 launches per month on average, but falling 10 shy is, given the sheer volume, not too shabby. You may also have noticed that in this shot, while it is a little bit dark, you can see the American flag just catching the glint of light every now and again. The reason we're seeing the flag in this particular perspective with this angle is because it's been lowered to have staff in respect for the passing of former U.S. President Jimmy Carter. Carter, of course, the 39th President of the United States. At T-minus 44 minutes, 14 seconds and counting. We're just about 6 minutes away, nominally speaking, from when the SpaceX launch director is set to make the call on the start of prop load. As we are awaiting that milestone to come, let's go ahead and talk about where this Falcon 9 rocket's going to fly once it does leave the pad. Let's talk a little trajectory, shall we? With this final 2024 mission departing from Historic Launch Complex 39A, this batch of satellites heading up to the 12th shell of the Starlink constellation. Falcon 9 rocket will be flying in a southeasterly trajectory. The first stage booster landing just to the east of the Caribbean, the Bahamas there. Drone ship out supporting this mission is called Just Read the Instructions. This launch will be the 104th drone ship landing if successful for this particular ship, and it will mark the 390th booster landing to date. Particular first stage booster supporting this mission, B-1078, is flying for a 16th time today. Not only is SpaceX interested, of course, in recovering its first stage boosters, but the payload fairings as well. They splash down to the waters of the Atlantic Ocean under the support of parachutes, and they will be recovered and refurbished and turned around for future flights. SpaceX is working to certify both its boosters as well as its payload fairings for up to 40 flights apiece. I believe the most flown fairing half is currently sitting at 22 missions at this moment in time. The flight leader for the first stage boosters at distinction belongs to B-1067, which is launched 24 times in total. Launched and landed, of course. In the realm of reuse, this mission also marks the 361st reflight of a first stage booster. In other words, the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. Taking a look at our live chat here, I want to thank a few folks for their support this evening. Our thanks to Jeff Shiner for a very generous 25 Canadian dollar super chat. Really appreciate that, Jeff, who says, thanks for the great coverage of the SpaceX launches. You're very welcome, and thank you for your support that helps make that possible. Don Pierce with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Don. CL Cutie, one of our wonderful channel members, with also a very generous $20 super chat, who says, thank you so much, Spaceflight Now, for an excellent 2024. Happy New Year, and we'll see you again next year. This has been quite the year for spaceflight in 2024. Of course, we had the launch from India, their fifth and final launch of the year on the SpaceX mission, the first time that India has launched a on-orbit docking demonstration mission. So best of luck to them on a successful outcome for that. The conclusion of the docking demonstration is expected around January 7th. I also want to thank Ryan Snyder for joining us at the channel membership at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard, Ryan. We're glad to have you with us. Michelle DeLay is marking 3 months with us as a channel member, who says, let's go SpaceX, light that candle. Butterfly marking 12 months with us as a channel member, saying, I'm 1 year old in membership years. Yes. Happy New Year, everyone. Someday I hope we can all watch a launch in person. It is quite the marvel to see a launch in person. I do hope that everyone gets that opportunity that wants it at some point in their life. And Patty Chichil, one of our other wonderful channel members, also big thank you for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. And to our 5 newest channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Be sure to thank Patty in the live chat if you haven't already. And we hope you decide to stick with us well into the new year and beyond. Coming into tonight's launch opportunity, the 45th Weather Squadron did forecast a 90% chance of favorable weather at liftoff, which is good from an opportunity to launch standpoint. That being said, there has been some fog that has been rolling its way across central Florida and is creeping on over here to Florida's Space Coast, where we are right now, Brevard County. Keeping a close eye on the weather systems here. There should not be a constraint to launch. However, it may sock in the pad a little bit and present a somewhat Vandenberg-like obstruction to seeing the liftoff of the rocket. So we'll have to keep our eyes peeled for that. This particular weather chart here, you see the blue accent bits of cloud. That's the fog that's making its way toward us. So we will have to wait and see where we are when we get just a little bit closer to launch. Right about now, T-minus 38 minutes, though, is the point at which the SpaceX launch director is making the call on the startup prop load. If that go-ahead was, in fact, given, we are tracking towards the fueling beginning here, now less than 3 minutes. T-minus 37 minutes, 3 seconds and counting. Busy day for SpaceX, of course, not only in preparation for a launch of its Falcon 9 rocket from the Kennedy Space Center, but also down at its Starbase facilities in southern Texas. As you can see right here in these live pictures from our friends Lab Padre, Booster 14 has made its way down to the orbital launch mount and has been gripped by the chopsticks. SpaceX is preparing for its 7th flight test of its Starship / Super Heavy integrated launch vehicle, believed to be no earlier than January 10th. So not too long to wait until this next flight of Starship potentially. And of course, it does run pretty close to the projected timeline for the launch of Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket, which is currently, there's current indications that it could launch no earlier than January 6th, although Blue Origin themselves has not announced a formal launch date for that mission. Should also point out that SpaceX has also not formally announced the 10th as a firm target launch date. But both companies are making important strides toward their next big launches, both from Texas and from here in Florida. Of course, Blue Origin's New Glenn will launch from Launch Complex 36 over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Now T-minus 35 minutes, 4 seconds and counting, as we await word from SpaceX that they are in fact ready to start fueling their rocket, which, if they are still targeting 12:39 fueling, has begun. What we're looking for as we await official word from SpaceX is, you see just beneath the X in SpaceX, which is, if you're looking at the rocket just to the left of the Strongback, you see a slightly lighter gray horizontal line that's just beneath the X. It's right about there where we start to see a frost line form as the super cold densified liquid oxygen begins flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. Given the difference in temperature between the LOX and the comparatively much warmer and humid Florida air, we'll also start to see a little bit of vapor form in that region of the rocket as well once fueling has begun. So seeing that is our visual hat tip that tanking is in fact underway. Time now T-minus 32 minutes, 21 seconds and counting. We're definitely seeing vapor now in that area of the rocket I was talking about, which does indeed suggest that tanking is underway, which means SpaceX is locking in a T0 at 12:39 a.m. Eastern. Because of SpaceX's style of fueling, known as a load and go, they are fueling the rocket till pretty close to the point at which they are ready to launch. And so once fueling has begun, they do not have the option to hold the countdown and reset. Any issue that crops up at this point, whether it be a technical issue or some type of otherwise range violation, would require them to stop down at this point and target a backup launch opportunity. That being said, at this point in the countdown, things seem to be going quite smoothly. Now T-minus 27 minutes, 44 seconds and counting. I want to thank the more than 4,400 of you that are joining with us now live at this point. If you haven't already, I'd certainly appreciate it if you could hit that like button for us. Allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage as we wind on down here in 2024. Also want to thank a few folks for your support this evening in particular. Thanks to channel member of the Rocket Girl for a very generous 26 Canadian dollars super chat. Appreciate that. Who says, here's to the Spaceflight Now team for providing incredible coverage during my first year as the Rocket Girl since Eutelsat 36D. I wish you all the best and hope to continue my space journey among this great community. Happy New Year. That's a lovely sentiment. Thank you for the support as well. Channel member Josh King with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Josh. Who says thank you to the great for the great coverage this year, Spaceflight Now crew. Can't wait to see what 2025 brings to the table. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Josh. Lone Solopsist gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that loan. To our 5 newest channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Be sure to thank Lone in the live chat if you haven't already. Channel member Joni Mahoney with a $5 super chat as well, who says, can't wait for 2025 for more space flights and Spaceflight Now. Hope everyone has a great new year. Same to you, Joni. And thanks to Mike Williamson for a $5 super chat. No message, just a little bit of support. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you chipping in. Currently T-minus 25 minutes, 54 seconds and counting. As we are awaiting the so-called big vent, not the little trickle of venting you're seeing right now there from the upper part of the Strongback, although that's where the big vent will be coming from. Let's go ahead and talk about the booster that will be supporting this final SpaceX mission of 2024. B-1078, which is making its 16th flight of its life so far. Winding the clock back, it made its first trip to space on March 2nd of 2023 in support of the 6th crew rotation mission heading up to the International Space Station aboard a Crew Dragon spacecraft. This one happened to be called Endeavour. It would fly to space not too long thereafter in support of the Crew 8 mission. Launch number 2 for this booster was the O3B mPOWER satellites number 3 and 4, built by Boeing on behalf of Luxembourg-based communications company SES. Those were sent up to a medium Earth orbit. That was followed by a quartet of Starlink missions. Those were Starlink 6-4 on June 4th, 6-8 on August 7th, 6-16 on September 16th, and 6-31 on December 3rd. 7th mission for this booster was the USSF 124 mission on Valentine's Day, February 14th of this year. It carried 6 satellites on behalf of the Missile Defense Agency and the Space Development Agency. Space Systems Command described these as, quote, a new generation of missile detection, missile tracking, and networked communications satellites. Speaking of communications satellites, the next series of launches were all Starlink missions. You had 6-46 on March 25th, 6-53 on April 23rd, 6-60 on May 28th, 10-2 on June 23rd, and 10-6 on August 2nd. Flight number 13 for B-1078 came on September 12th. That was the first batch of 5 Bluebird satellites on behalf of AST Space Mobile. Most recently, back to Starlink land we go. We had Starlink 10-13 on October 30th, and most recently Starlink 6-76 on November 27th. That, of course, brings us to the mission we have on deck today, now officially December 31st here on the East Coast. Happy New Year's Eve to everyone here in the eastern part of the United States. And obviously to everyone who's been in the New Year's Day swing of things. Now T minus 20 minutes, 40 seconds and counting. We're closing in on the start of the big vent, which again here at Launch Complex 39A comes just a little bit sooner than over at pad 40. So right, here we go. At the start of the big vent. Again, this vent is a sign that SpaceX is conditioning the feed lines at the pad prior to second stage liquid oxygen load. That'll begin at T minus 16 minutes. Now T minus 16 minutes, 17 seconds and counting. You see the so-called big vent has tapered off and SpaceX is preparing to start loading liquid oxygen on board the Falcon 9's second stage, starting here in just about 5 seconds. Taking a look at the live chat, want to thank one of our wonderful moderators, Astro Joe, for gifting a Spaceflight Now membership. Appreciate that generosity, Joe. And to our newest channel member, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Astro Joe in the live chat. We hope you decide to stick around with channel membership into the new year and beyond. Also want to thank Alan McKeithen for a $5 super chat. Appreciate that, Alan. Who says, always enjoy your commentary, Will. Happy New Year. Well, thank you so much, Alan, for the kind words and for the support tonight. Very much enjoy conducting the commentary. Now T-minus 13 minutes, 40 seconds and counting. Tonight's launch will be the 417th Falcon 9 rocket launch to date. This will also be the 132nd Falcon 9 in just the year 2024. This, of course, being the workhorse vehicle for SpaceX. Let's go ahead and talk about it one last time before the close of the year. Falcon 9 rocket standing 70 meters or 229 feet tall, has a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. The majority of that is made up by the Falcon 9's first stage. Once again, this particular booster, B-1078, has flown 15 times before, looking for flight number 16 tonight, or technically this morning. At the base of the first stage are 9 Merlin engines, which burn a rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are black carbon fiber landing legs, which are used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Again, tonight SpaceX is using the drone ship called Just Read the Instructions. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core, which is surrounded by carbon fiber. In the image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the second stage, and at first stage main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. Second stage engine nozzle is also housed safely inside the inner stage adapter until stage separation. Speaking of that second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, powered by a single modified Merlin engine, which is called a Merlin vacuum engine, or an MVac engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle, which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice on today's flight to place the 21 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. As with the first stage, so goes the second, powered by the same prop mix, that being RP-1 and liquid oxygen. Following the deployment of the Starlink satellites, it will perform a deorbit burn, driving the upper stage back into the atmosphere where it will burn up and help to eliminate the risk of creating any unnecessary space debris on this mission. Finally, at the top of the Falcon 9 stack are the payload fairings, which are currently encapsulating the 21 Starlink satellites. Fairings are made up of a carbon composite material and stand 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall. and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. Two halves of the payload fairings will be recovered a little further downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. And they gently splash down under the support of parachutes. Once collected, they'll be brought back into Port Canaveral, turned over to Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, where they will get that refurbishing work. Once again, SpaceX is working to certify both its first stage booster and the payload fairings for up to 40 flights apiece. Time now, T-minus 10 minutes and counting. Now T-minus 9 minutes and counting. Talking about the payload that's on board this particular Falcon 9 flight. 21 Starlink satellites. 13 of those feature direct-to-cell capabilities. SpaceX continues to roll out the direct-to-cell piece of its Starlink constellation. They actually just about a day or so ago announced a new partnership with telecommunications company Vion Group and their digital operator. Apologies, I'm going to mispronounce this, I'm sure. Kyivstar. Again, apologies on the pronunciation. I'm sure that is completely entirely wrong, but I bring it up in the context of the direct-to-cell capability because that digital operator of Vion signed an agreement allowing the direct-to-cell satellites to operate within the boundaries of Ukraine. That announcement was just made within the last day. Coming back to these satellites on board this mission, this will mark the 90th Starlink launch of 2024. Each satellite weighs 1,760 pounds, or about 800 kilograms. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet, or 30 meters. They use argon hull thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering, built in Redmond, Washington, which is near Seattle. And they'll be deployed at about 180 miles, or 291 kilometers in altitude at a 43 degrees inclination. A T-minus 7 minutes and counting. At this point, SpaceX is performing the Merlin engine chill, flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. Time now 6 minutes and counting. At this point, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. Taking a look at our live chat here, I want to thank the now more than 18 1,000 of you who are with us live on this final orbital launch of 2024. If you haven't already, we'd certainly appreciate it if you could hit that like button for us, allow some more folks to cruise on in these final 5.5 minutes we have before this Falcon 9 is ready to depart the Space Coast. Before we start getting pad level views, want to thank a few more folks for their support tonight. Want to thank channel member Space Pony for a $2 super chat. Thank you, Space Pony. Who says, get the Keurig ready for 2025. Well, yeah, but yes, the caffeine train will very much keep going in 2025 as there are even more launches on the horizon than we had in 2024. Don Pierce with the $2 super chat. Good to see you this evening, Don. Thank you for the support. Timothy Whaley, TJ, also with a $2 super chat. Thank you, TJ.
For Strongback retract.
As you just heard that call, the Strongback retract sequence about to get underway. The clamp arms just meet the payload fairings will open up, and then the transporter erector with the Strongback will recline a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. Also want to thank God of L's for $1 super chat.
Strongback retract has started.
Good call from SpaceX. Channel member Cloudy, thank you for the clarification with a $5 super chat. Says, just like Cloudy when you see me in chat, weather clear here. Hope to catch a glimpse over the trees. Go SpaceX, go Starlink. Psychonaut69 gifting a Spaceflight Now membership. Appreciate that, Psychonaut. To our newest channel member, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Sure to thank Psychonaut in the live chat if you haven't already. Want to welcome Adrian R. joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level as well. And then Adrian with a very generous $50 super chat. Thank you, Adrian. It says, amazing work in 2024. I'm looking forward to another great year in 2025. Happy New Year to you and the Spaceflight family. Happy New Year to you as well, Adrian, and thank you so much for your support at that level, man. Toby Wolby with a very generous $25.01 super chat saying, Team Space, best wishes for an amazing 2025 for all. Thank you, Toby. Cruising into 3 minutes before liftoff. Should be hearing the call that the first stage LOX tank is full here momentarily.
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
Good call from SpaceX now, just waiting for Stage 2 LOX load to be complete, and the Falcon 9 will be fully loaded. Burton McCallum, the $5 super chat, says, really impressed with the progress you have made. Impressed. Thank you so much for the kind words of support. Lee Sandvik with a $4 super chat. Thank you, Leah. T. Howard with a $5 super chat. Some very kind words saying, I want to hear Will Robinson Smith as he narrates the next moon landing. Well, perhaps someday. Of course, we do have a moon-bound mission going up in the coming weeks, if all goes well. Firefly's Blue Ghost lunar lander, coupled along with iSpace's
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
Hakuto R mission number 2 are set to launch jointly. Hear that call from SpaceX. The Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. This venting you're seeing here are the ground gas closeouts as they clear any remaining liquid oxygen from the lines.
Ground gas closeouts.
As we're now just about a minute before liftoff, we'll go ahead and leave the live chat until the other side of launch. We'll keep our focus on the rocket here in the remaining minute before our final 24 launch.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Good call from SpaceX there. We are now just awaiting SpaceX launch director to make their final go for launch.
LD, go for launch.
And with that, we are less than 30 seconds away from this final launch from SpaceX in the year 2024. 20 seconds and counting.
T minus 30 seconds.
And here we go. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition. And liftoff of Starlink 12-6, the final orbital mission of 2024. The Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. Now, a little more than a minute after liftoff, the Falcon 9 will be throttling down its engines as it approaches max Q at the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle.
Max Q.
Good call for max Q. Now I've got a few events in fairly rapid succession here. We'll have the 9 Merlin engines cease their burn. First stage main engine cutoff at about 2 minutes and 24 seconds post liftoff. That'll be followed seconds thereafter by stage separation, and then the ignition of that MVAC for SES-1 beginning its first burn of this operation. Now 2 minutes into flight. Some great work by our tracking team tonight, closing us out here in 2024. Coming up on MECO. Got MECO. Shift stage separation.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
All good calls from SpaceX. Good onboard camera views as well. Payload fairing should be deploying right about now. There you see the fairing separate in the big box in real time. Should see the same in the bottom right hand corner.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Good call from SpaceX, and those Starlink satellites now exposed to the vacuum of space for the first time on this mission. As we're coming up on 4 minutes into flight, the next milestone here will be the first stage entry burn. SpaceX will reignite 3 of the Merlin engines on the Falcon 9 first stage booster to begin slowing down that part of the vehicle.
Those vehicles are on a nominal trajectory.
Good call that both the Falcon 9 first and second stages are continuing to follow a nominal flight path. Not a whole lot to see from the Falcon 9 first stage right now as it is cruising in darkness at the time being. But in less than 2 minutes, we'll see it from the glow of those 3 Merlin engines. First stage booster has passed its apogee, starting to make its descent towards the drone ship. Now 5 minutes into flight. Taking a look from inside the first stage booster up through the inner stage. Now about 5.5 minutes into the mission, just about 30 seconds from now, we'll see the start of that entry burn.
Both vehicles continue to follow a nominal trajectory.
We see the start of the entry burn there in real time. It's captured by
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
our friend Pete Carsons with Max Ski
Stage 1
Productions.
FTS has safed.
It's burn lasting a little less than 30 seconds in total.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
With the conclusion of the first stage entry burn, we're now looking toward
Stage 2 FTS has safed.
the landing burn coming up here in less than a minute. In real time, that is. Time we're focusing on for the visuals at this point will be the clock from SpaceX in the bottom middle of your screen.
Stage 1 transonic.
Falcon 9 first stage booster now traveling below the speed of sound as it has been slowed by the entry burn as well as atmospheric drag as it prepares to ignite one Merlin engine for the landing burn here. Should be starting in just a few seconds.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And with that, we have our final booster landing of the year.
MVAC shutdown.
Nominal park orbit insertion.
And with a good call for the conclusion of that upper stage burn and it entering into a nominal parking orbit. It'll remain in a coast phase until about T plus 54 minutes and 3 seconds. There will be a brief 1 second burn of the upper stage engine in order to circularize the orbit. And that'll set up the Starlink satellites for their deployment at T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 11 seconds post liftoff. Before we go ahead and get to our mission stats as they currently stand, do have a number of other folks to thank, but just want to give a broad thank you to all of our channel members for making a very wonderful year of live launch coverage possible in 2024. We look forward to many, many more missions to cover with each and every one of you in 2025. Got, of course, many launches from SpaceX, but also the debut of Blue Origin's New Glenn. Vulcan will fly again in 2024. Rocket Lab will be back with Electron. May get some more news and updates, of course, on the progress of Neutron, as well as Stoke Space. Baia here on the Space Coast is making progress towards its first launch in 2026, so should see some more movement from them. And many, many other things to cover in 2025. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, now is a great time to do so. Close out the year with a quick, easy, and free way to support the channel and what we do here at Spaceflight Now, just by clicking subscribe, ringing the bell icon, and that way you never miss what we've got going on with the channel. With that, I want to thank some more folks individually who've been supporting the stream in the final minutes pre-launch and through liftoff as well. Our thanks to Mark Potochnik for a $2 super chat, one of our wonderful channel members. Thank you, Mark. Burton, actually, I believe I read Burton's comment already. Carl T10 with a $10 super chat saying, nephew of the late Wilmer Bud Thacker, former Chief NASA Delta Launch Operations Division, former Chief Delta Operations Launch Vehicle Engineering, and lifelong NASA engineer. That is very cool. Thank you for the support, Carl. SO the Tiger with a $2 super chat. Thank you, SO, saying Happy New Year all. Sean Mack with a $2 super chat, also saying Happy New Year. Mr. Blackstar with a $1 super chat. Thank you, Mr. Blackstar. Tyrone Lonely Right with a $3 Australian super chat. Thank you for the support this evening. Menu Bach with a 25 RON super chat. Appreciate you saying space is cool. Dave Singleton with a $5 super chat as well. Thank you, Dave. One of our wonderful channel members, I am Lita, with a $5 super chat saying Happy New Year, Spaceflight Now family. Looking forward to another exciting year ahead with y'all. Likewise. Peter Beaufoy with a $5 New Zealand super chat. Thank you, Peter. David Singleton, Salty Paws, each with a $5 super chat. Thanks to the both of you. Frank Castle, guessing not the Marvel anti-hero Frank Castle, but appreciate you being here with a $5 super chat, saying 2025 will be a great year for SpaceX. It will certainly be a busy year for them, no doubt. Skunk PS4 with a $5 super chat, one of our channel members, saying thanks for all, Will, and the mods. Viper 415 with a very generous $20 super chat, saying John T for lunch. Thank you, Viper. The Brewski Main with a $10 super chat, asking if there will be an onboard view, and as you saw with the launch that we just had, there certainly was. Ebony Locks, channel member, with a $2 super chat, saying best wishes for everyone in 2024, and presumably on to 2025, less than a day away now. Josh Birchman with a $5 super chat, wishing they could hitch a ride aboard a Falcon 9. Toby Wobe with a $10 super chat, channel member, saying they make it look so easy. Jean-Luc, but not Picard, marking 7 months with us as a channel member. Pod Leader level saying great coverage. Happy New Year to all. Thank you, Jean-Luc. Appreciate you being with us. And in 2025, we'll continue to make it so. Patty Chichil with a $5 super chat saying Happy New Year, Spaceflight Now, mods, and live chat peeps. Will, thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. Rocket Lady Elizabeth with a $5 super chat saying we appreciate Spaceflight Now. Thank you, Will and team. Landon Cahal with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Landon, saying great view from Boca Raton, Florida. Awesome way to wrap up 2024. And here's to an even greater 2025 with more SpaceX success. And finally, Paratrooper Chad saying here's to new and exciting things on the Florida Space Coast in 2025. Thanks, Will and all at Spaceflight Now. I'll miss watching these when I leave South Florida in June. I'll watch on Spaceflight Now. Well, sorry you won't be able to catch the launches with your own two eyes, but that is why we're here to bring all these launch opportunities to those who are near and abroad. With that, let's go ahead and take a look at our mission stats as they currently stand. As you see, the Strongback being brought up right there at Launch Complex 39A. This was the 417th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 132nd Falcon 9 launch of 2024. This was SpaceX's 361st Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. With the 2 Falcon Heavy missions on the year, this was mission 134 and final. This was SpaceX's 134th orbital launch within the last 365 days, of course. This also marked the 98th orbital launch for SpaceX from Pad 39A and the 192nd overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Moving on to some the bar chart, graphical representation. One last look at the bar chart before we start adding to the 2025 column for SpaceX. Capped the year at 134 launches. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 104th booster landing on the drone ship Just Read the Instructions. That marked the 310th SpaceX drone ship landing and the 390th overall booster landing for SpaceX. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 93rd orbital launch from Florida, the 140th orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 153rd orbital launch from U.S. Rocket Company, and the 259th orbital launch attempt from around the globe, and that's where that number will stay. The handful of launch failures on the year. Here is where we not only stand on the pie chart from today, but our pie chart that'll close us out for all of 2024. Here are those final numbers. The United States closed out with 154 launches, China with 68, Russia with 17, India notched its 5th and final just earlier today, or yesterday, technically now. Japan ended with 7, Iran with 4, North Korea with 1, and the European Space Agency with 3. Taking one last look at the live chat before we begin to put a button on this. Want to welcome Rocket Lady Elizabeth to channel membership at the Pad Leader level, and a big thanks to David Choi for a very generous $20 super chat saying, Happy New Year, everyone. With that, I want to thank our friends Pete Carsons with Max Q Productions, Chuck and Jen Briggs for their support and tracking tonight and throughout all of 2024. Thanks to our moderators in the live chat, Astro Joe, Aussie Space Girl, Callistia Lee. Appreciate you all, and all of our other moderators who've been helping us out throughout the year. I want to thank our stalwart photographers, Adam Bernstein, Michael Kane. You can find their work on X, formerly known as Twitter. Adam is at Apron NYC, and Michael Kane at MD Kane Jr. I want to thank, of course, our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, who not only has been running the technical operations of this broadcast, but has been at the helm of Spaceflight Now for now a quarter of a century. And here's to the next 25 years and beyond. Most importantly, I want to thank you for wherever you've been watching this broadcast, whether in its live original form or in a TiVo-like replay here on YouTube. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Hope you all have a wonderful and safe New Year's Eve into New Year's Day, and we will see you in 2025. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others. We will see you next time, folks, and until then, Happy New Year. Bye-bye.